The flames took my home in less than 20 minutes. My family's love disappeared even faster. As I stood barefoot in the freezing night wearing nothing but borrowed clothes, my own brother looked me in the eyes and said, "Maybe if you'd taken better care of your house, this never would have happened." My name is Olivia. I'm 34 years old, and the night my house burned down, I thought I had lost everything. I had no idea that the fire investigation would uncover a betrayal so shocking it would destroy my family forever. My little house wasn't expensive. It wasn't perfect. But every inch of it represented years of sacrifice. After my divorce, I worked 2 jobs for nearly 7 years to buy that place. I painted every wall myself. I planted every flower in the front yard. Even the porch swing had been built by my grandfather before he passed away. It was the first place that had ever truly felt like mine. My parents never understood why I loved it so much. Dad constantly compared me to my older brother, Daniel. Daniel invested in rental properties. "You bought an old fixer-upper." Mom agreed. "You always settle for less." I stopped trying to explain. To me, home wasn't measured in dollars. It was measured in peace. Daniel thought differently. He had always believed success meant owning more than everyone else. He drove a luxury SUV. He lived in a huge house. He reminded everyone of it every chance he got. Whenever relatives visited, he'd joke, "Olivia still lives in that tiny cottage." Everyone laughed. I smiled anyway. Because I was genuinely happy. Then everything changed one rainy Thursday night. I had fallen asleep on the couch while reading. Around 2 in the morning, I woke to the sound of my smoke alarm screaming. The living room was already filling with thick black smoke. I jumped up in panic. Flames were racing across the kitchen ceiling. I grabbed my dog, Daisy, and ran barefoot through the front door. Seconds later, my living room windows exploded. Neighbors rushed outside. Someone called 911. I stood on the sidewalk shaking as firefighters battled the blaze. By sunrise, there was almost nothing left. The fire chief gently approached me. "I'm so sorry." I couldn't even cry. I simply stared at the blackened ruins of everything I'd worked for. My insurance company immediately began processing the claim. The investigators said it appeared to be an electrical fire. At least, that's what everyone believed at first. I called my parents hoping for comfort. Instead, Dad sighed. "We warned you about that old house." Mom added, "If you'd renovated the wiring sooner, maybe this wouldn't have happened." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I almost died. Mom remained silent. Then Daniel called. I hate to say it. He paused dramatically. But this is exactly why people buy newer homes. I hung up without answering. For the next week, I stayed with my best friend, Rachel. Not one member of my family offered me a place to sleep. Not one. At Grandma's birthday dinner 3 days later, I expected at least a little sympathy. Instead, my aunt asked, "So, are you finally going to buy a proper house now?" Daniel laughed. "Assuming insurance even pays." Everyone chuckled. I quietly excused myself before anyone saw me cry. Rachel hugged me that night. "They don't deserve you." I wanted to believe her. Then another blow came. My insurance company delayed payment. The investigator requested additional testing. Apparently, something about the fire scene didn't make sense. Days turned into weeks. Meanwhile, Daniel started acting strangely. He repeatedly asked whether investigators had contacted me. He wanted updates almost every day. At first, I assumed he was finally showing concern. Looking back, it felt more like nervousness. Then one afternoon, I received a call from fire investigator Harris. "Ms. Bennett." His voice sounded unusually serious. "We've completed the laboratory analysis." My stomach tightened. "What did you find?" "There are signs the fire wasn't accidental." I froze. What? He continued carefully. We discovered traces of an accelerant near the back entrance. I nearly dropped my phone. You're saying? We're investigating this as arson. Everything around me seemed to stop. Someone hadn't just destroyed my house. Someone had tried to kill me. That night I barely slept. I replayed every detail in my mind. Who would do something like that? I didn't have enemies. I wasn't involved in lawsuits. Nothing made sense. Then another strange thing happened. A neighbor named Mr. Collins knocked on Rachel's door. I think this belongs to you. He handed me a security camera hard drive. My system was damaged in the fire. He looked embarrassed. I only realized yesterday it backed everything up automatically. My heart raced. We immediately gave the footage to investigator Harris. 2 days later, he called again. You should come in. At the station, he played the video. The timestamp showed just after midnight. A dark SUV slowly stopped behind my property. A hooded figure climbed out carrying a gas can. The person disappeared behind my house. Minutes later. A flash. Then flames. The figure ran back to the SUV and drove away. I couldn't breathe. The license plate was blurry. But the vehicle looked familiar. Very familiar. Investigator Harris leaned forward. Do you recognize it? I whispered. It looks exactly like my brother's. He nodded. We thought so too. I refused to believe it. Daniel could be arrogant. Insensitive. Selfish. But a murderer? No. It couldn't be. Then Harris placed another document on the table. A financial report. 3 weeks before the fire, Daniel had quietly made an offer to purchase my property. I stared at him. I never saw this. It was declined. My confusion only deepened. Why would he want my house? Harris slid over one final file. A city development proposal. A large commercial company planned to purchase every property on my street. Owners would receive nearly 4 times market value. My little cottage sat on the most valuable corner lot. If Daniel owned it before the public announcement, he'd make millions. Suddenly everything made sense. He'd wanted me to sell. I refused. Then my house mysteriously burned down. I felt physically sick. The investigators still needed stronger proof. Then fate stepped in. Daniel's wife, Megan, contacted me. She sounded terrified. We need to meet. At a quiet coffee shop, she slid a small voice recorder across the table. I found this in Daniel's office. The recording began playing. Daniel's voice filled the room. I only meant to scare her. Another man's voice answered. The fire spread too fast. Daniel whispered. Nobody was supposed to be inside. I burst into tears. My own brother had known I could have died. Megan reached across the table. I'm sorry. She started crying too. I can't stay married to someone like this. The police arrested Daniel the next morning. But the story didn't end there. Our parents immediately blamed me. Mom called screaming. How could you send your own brother to jail? I couldn't believe it. He tried to kill me. Dad shouted. He's still family. I quietly answered. So was I. They hung up. The criminal case moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. The security footage. The accelerant. The recording. Financial records. Then came the final twist. During the trial, Daniel admitted he hadn't acted completely alone. The prosecutor asked, "Who knew your plan?" Daniel lowered his head. "Our father." The courtroom gasped. Dad had known Daniel planned to pressure me into selling. He claimed he never believed Daniel would actually start a fire. But he'd helped hide the development plans from me anyway. Mom collapsed into tears. She hadn't known anything. Dad looked 20 years older in that moment. He whispered, "I never thought." The judge interrupted. "You never thought your actions had consequences." Daniel was convicted of arson, insurance fraud, and multiple related crimes. Dad faced charges for obstructing the investigation and concealing evidence. Within months, everything they'd tried to gain disappeared. Daniel lost his business. Dad lost his reputation. The development company withdrew from the entire project after the criminal investigation. Ironically, nobody received the fortune Daniel had risked everything to steal. As for me, the insurance company fully honored my claim once the investigation was complete. With community support, I rebuilt my home on the same land. Stronger. Safer. Brighter. Neighbors volunteered every weekend. People I'd barely known gave more love in 6 months than my own family had given me in years. On the day I moved back in, Rachel handed me a small box. Inside was my grandfather's old porch swing. Firefighters had managed to save part of it before the structure collapsed. It had been carefully restored. I couldn't stop crying. We hung it on the new porch that afternoon. A few weeks later, Mom visited alone. She looked exhausted. "I left your father." I stayed quiet. "I spent too many years protecting the wrong people." She looked around my rebuilt home. "I should have protected you." For the first time in years, I believed her. Healing wasn't immediate. Some scars never disappear. Just like the burn marks still faintly visible on my hands. But every morning, I sit on Grandpa's restored porch swing with Daisy sleeping beside me. I watch the sunrise over the place my brother tried to erase. People sometimes ask if I ever wanted revenge. The truth is, I didn't need it. The arson report exposed the person who destroyed my house. The truth exposed the people who had destroyed our family long before the fire ever started. And while flames reduced my home to ashes, they also burned away every illusion I still had about who truly loved me. Only then was I finally free to build a new life on a foundation no one could ever set on fire again.